Electrocast.
Hey, what's up, Outkick fans? I'm Kurt Schilling. You know me as a three-time World Series champion. I'm joining Outkick to bring you a brand new baseball show where we talk about everything, but only baseball. And you should subscribe to the podcast on Outkick's YouTube and search for the podcast exclusively on Spotify.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Dallas Goodlet was adopted at the age of 5, thinking he knew who his biological parents were, to only find at the age of 19 that wasn't the truth. From then, he struggled with shame, abandonment, anger, and identity, which drove him to a life of alcohol and drug abuse and attempted suicide. It wasn't until he experienced psilocybin that his life changed for the better. At the age of 30, his love for his daughter became his driving force for sobriety and to live. At 35, he has taken up walking and finds peace and purpose in each step, as he now coaches others to live a better life. I feel fortunate to have met Dallas, given all that he has been through. He is a shining light and inspiration for others and a truly beautiful person inside and out. This episode discusses suicide and suicidal ideation, which some people might find disturbing. If you or someone you know was impacted, help is available. Speak to someone today. Here in Australia, Lifeline is available 24 hours a day on 13 11 14. Welcome, Dallas, to the Ethical Evolution.
Yes, thank you for having me, Mindy.
Now, for those who don't know who you are and what you do, can you go ahead and tell us?
Yeah, just like I said, my name is Dallas, and right now I'm just trying to help people out, doing some online coaching, just trying to help people kind of any way I can as far as what I've done in my life. Been on a journey of just being sober and just trying to get everything, lined up, and I call it linear. For so long, I felt like I was just tangled up, and I'm just trying to not have so many peaks and valleys, and just live a nice, sober, straight life is what I'm trying to do at this moment.
Yeah. Now, if we take a step back into your past, Dallas, there's a whole bunch of things you uncovered in your life, and addiction was a really big part of your life, wasn't it? Can you tell us about how bad it got?
It got bad where, and I don't want to compare myself to anybody else, but for me, I don't know how it could have got any worse. From the time I opened my eyes, from the time I went to bed, it was either drinking, smoking marijuana, doing cocaine, took enormous amounts of psychedelics, which we can talk about those later. If any drug I ever did, those probably played the most beneficial part of my life, as far as healing is concerned. But, there was a period in my life where I was doing so much. I think I was trying to essentially kill myself without doing it, if you know what I mean. Just drinking as much as I could. And like I said, there was times I was doing so much cocaine, I thought my heart was going to explode, and I just kept on doing it. That was a period of my life that I'm glad is over, but I just didn't give up, and not any longer. So here I am.
So, it sounds like you were trying to numb something, some pain underneath all of that. Now, you discovered that you were adopted, right?
Correct. So at 5 years old is kind of when I first found out. And I remember like it was yesterday, I was sitting on my mom's lap. She's a piano player, and I was sitting on her lap. She was at the piano, and she told me that I was adopted at 5. At that time, it's kind of when I'd say life kind of began for me. And, excuse me, I was from that point on, I just really never felt, I guess you'd say, normal. I had a great family. They loved me. I couldn't really ask for a better family. But, I just never really felt whole. I never felt, I hate saying I didn't have a real family, but that's kind of how I felt for the longest time. Now, I felt that way for about 20 years till I healed myself. But, I'd say from about 5 to about 24, I never really felt I had a real family, even though I was loved. But, I found that out at 5 years old. And, a lot of shame, a lot of anger, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of feelings with that came with it.
So, I mean, you would have struggled with your own identity through that entire time, like knowing who you are, where you belonged, and that sense of belonging can be the thing that really makes us come unstuck, can't it? Like, and it can really spur on things like addiction because you don't know who you are, you don't know who your tribe is, who your people are, or where you should be. And so you're like, well, I'll just numb it out until I can find a way to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was doing it for that long a period, because I was numbing a pain. I was numbing a void in my life that, like you said, I didn't know what tribe I belonged to. And the crazy part of the story is I thought I knew. When my parents explained this to me at that age, I thought I knew. So I can kind of go on a detailed part of the story here. But, they told me when I was 5, and the people who I thought were my biological parents, I would see them often. So they only lived about 10 miles away from me. So I used to wrestle, was into sports, and I would see this family at sporting events. And I thought I knew who they were. So I would see them, even though I had a giant void, I at least had some of that hole filled, at least I know. But come to find out later in my life, which we can get into later, it wasn't them. So that's when the hole really blew up and exploded. But it was a big void that was really never filled. And I filled it with drugs and alcohol and sex, going to the bars, just women, wherever I could find. It was a bad time in my life. I had a very, very bad perspective on women. I loved women. And at the same time, I despised them for what I went through as a child. It was really duality type relationship, you might say, kind of a view I had with women. So I definitely filled up that hole with substances for sure.
And given, all that you've been through and how much, you were trying to punish yourself, and how you were trying to numb it, I'm surprised you're still out here in society, Dallas.
Well, and I am too. I was violent. I'm surprised I'm not in jail for honestly killing somebody. Surprised I'm not dead. It's really a miracle where I'm at today. And I'm not where I want to be at yet in life. I continue to grow. I don't know if I ever will be, but each day I get better. From where I was at, 15 years ago, it's not even the same universe. So, yeah.
So how long have you been sober now, Dallas?
Completely sober. Nothing at all. It's been a little over a year.
Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I've gradually gotten better. My daughter, when she was born, is kind of when I cut out most of the alcohol. So my daughter's almost 10 years old now. And for the last 10 years of my life, I've been really drunk twice in 10 years. And I socially drank for quite a bit, but just really, really drunk where I was kind of, blacked out in a sense, it's been twice. But before that, it was a day in, day out thing. Pills, Xanax, you name it. So, yeah.
So, I've spoken to many addicts and I also speak with a lot of addiction recovery experts as well. And so I know a lot in this space. But for you, do you feel like you'll always be an addict? Like I know for a lot of people, for them, it's something that's always a piece of their puzzle that they just have to deal with regardless of whether they're sober or not.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And that's why I don't really, because I'm telling you, Benny, I tried quitting a million times. And I used to be that guy where I would announce it like, oh, hey, everybody, 2 weeks sober, I'm a month. And then I crashed off the wagon. So now, I mean, it's a lifelong thing. So I don't even, like, if you hadn't asked, I wouldn't even have told you. I just say I'm not doing drugs or alcohol right now. That's what I'm doing. Because it's more than just day by day. Really, it's moment by moment. It's second by second. Because at any moment, if I took a drink, if I smoked a cigarette, cigarettes, I was addicted to those for 20 years. Smoked a joint, line of cocaine, anything. I was either zero or 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
So it would all be gone. And I just know I can't touch it anymore. And it took a long, long time to realize that, and many, many times quitting. Because I don't know your really life history, but you say you've worked with people and you know a lot about this, but people fool themselves and they think I can have a little bit. I can do it in moderation. Maybe some people can, but other people that can't, they need to realize that and just you can't have any. So, and I've even been that way with food. Like I've had peaks and valleys and plateaus of food where I've been real heavy, lost a lot of weight. Lost a lot of weight. So even with food now, like I try to stay away from desserts because I'll eat a whole bag of candy, even. So I just stay away from it completely.
And that's it. I think some people just have this propensity, regardless of whatever the drug is, they can't be near it. They really can't be near it. Yeah. It can't be an arm's reach. And if it is, it'll all be gone.
This episode is brought to you by Relief Band. If you regularly suffer from nausea, listen up. Relief Band is a clinically proven wearable nausea solution with no drugs or unwanted side effects. It treats nausea caused by motion sickness, anxiety, migraines, and more, using technology that sends signals to your brain to stop nausea quickly and effectively. Get relief today. Shop now at reliefband.com. And to get 20% off your purchase, use the code RELIEF20 at checkout.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have friends who they can do that, have a joint every month. And it's good for them, but I can't compare myself to them. I'm me, and I know I can't. So, and it took a long time to realize that.
So, how did you work your way out of the addiction and the pain? Like, how did you begin to heal?
So even when I was going through all of this, I'm a big believer in self-development, whether it be reading, meditating, journaling, whatever. I was still doing all these things, but there wasn't anything really that put me over the edge as far as, I guess getting off these substances and healing myself. But what it was, I've talked about it before with other people was, it was a major dose of psilocybin mushrooms, which that's what changed everything. And that story kind of goes, and I had already done them before, but I don't know if you know much about psychedelics or not. But yeah, you always want to set your intentions, and sometimes it doesn't matter what your intentions are; it can take you on a totally different ride. But this time, my intentions always were like, God, I want to heal. Like I don't like being this way. I don't like feeling this way, thinking this way. So at age 24. I took, it was probably about 7 grams of psilocybin mushrooms. And I remember shouldn't be telling this story, but I was driving around and I drove into like a cemetery of all things. And the tombstones were there and I was walking up over the horizon there. The sun was going to go down. And I don't know what it was, Benny, but when that sun peaked or, went over those tombstones and was going down, it was like the death of the old me. So all the labels that I had labeled myself with, like I have no self-worth, I have no value, nobody loves me, just all these horrible negative things I would say to myself, just like that, they were gone. And I was just overwhelmed with peace and love. and there was just no judgment. It was like I was born again. And also things that, my parents and I, we had a really tumultuous relationship for a long time, and I'll get to that here in a minute. So for about 5 years, we really didn't even speak. And it healed that too. So there was no more blame. There was no more anger towards them. It was just like I started over. So that day from then on, everything changed. I mean, my whole life has been different. I tell people probably the two most profound moments of my life was the day my daughter was born and the day I partook in those psychedelics. So, and again, I'm not advocating for everybody do those. And I know they're doing trials on people now for helping with depression and stuff. And I believe they do have their purpose and their value. But yeah, I mean, it changed everything from that day on.
And I've heard a lot around psychedelics, in particular psilocybin, and the good it can do for those with chronic mental illness, if done in a very concentrated and intentional way. And I've had experts on the show on that as well. So if you haven't checked them out, go have a listen. But
sure.
There's so much healing in that space that I think medicine really needs to catch up with. I mean, the transformation within you, it's like it flips a switch in your brain and you're a whole new person.
Yeah. And, something I tell people it was like, they'll say, what was it like? And it's hard to explain. But I just tell people it was like if you went to like 20 years of therapy in 4 hours. I mean, that's what it was like. It was just, everything was just fixed just like that. And just the overwhelming feeling of love. And that's all that matters in this life. It's not money. It's not sex. It's not food. It's not any of these things us humans crave and desire. It just comes down to love. And that's all I felt. It was just love, love, love. And, it's like, I understand now. Total loss of fear of death. I mean, just everything that kind of drives our human behaviors was just gone. So yeah, that's kind of what changed everything was that day. So, and well, don't get me wrong. That changed all the, how do I word this? So from like 24 to 30, I was kind of just drifting through life and still drinking, still smoking pot all the time. But it didn't come from this place of like no value, from the self-loathing. I was more just like, I didn't really have a purpose at that time in life. And I was kind of drifting through, and to an outsider, I mean, I was probably still an alcoholic and all this, but at least it wasn't coming from a place of self-hatred and anger, So my daughter's kind of when that all changed. But yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll tell you real quick though how that all, my parents and I's relationship. So from like 5 years old, I was telling you about that, had the shame, the hatred, the anger, all that. 19 is kind of where the story it gets crazy. So I explained earlier that I thought I knew who my biological parents were from 5 to 19. And what happened was I was working at a Kmart one day, and the woman who I had thought was my biological mom had come in to talk to me. Now, at this time, I wanted nothing to do with her. How dare you give me up for adoption? I have a family, like, don't talk to me. So I had a lot of resentment towards her already. Well, she came into the store, gave me her phone number, and wanted to talk. I took the number, crumpled it up, threw it in my pocket, went home, talking to my dad that day. And I said, Dad, her name was Beth. And I said, Beth came into the store today and wanted to talk to me. I said, I wish she'd just leave me alone, And my dad looked at me and he said, he's like, Dallas, he goes, that's she's not your biological mom. And the only way I explain this to people is like, if you see these movies where somebody steps on a landmine, their whole body just blows into pieces. That was the way my mind went. Like, I was like, huh? What do you mean she's not? And he's like, well, no, that's not your biological mom. So any kind of shred of identity I had at that time, which wasn't much at all, or any type of wholeness, it was gone. It was just completely wiped out and gone. And I remember, I looked at him and it was just straight anger. Like, how could you lie to me? Totally misguided anger towards him, but it was a lot of, just how could you lie to me? And, I didn't realize that at the time. He was doing the best he could. The courts, when you are adopted, what they do is they have either open or closed cases. It may be different now, but back in the 80s, I was considered a closed case. So I come to find out that my mom was in a mental institution and the state pretty much forced her to give me up for adoption.
Right.
So then I had foster parents who I thought were my biological parents. They had me. They couldn't take care of me, or, quote unquote, didn't want me, whatever the case. And then the parents I have now that I've always known since I was about 2 years old, they took me in. So yeah, for about 5 years, I went on a rampage, and that was like from like 19 to 24. And, like I say, I look back at it now and it tears me up inside, because I didn't want anything to do with my parents, and they didn't lie to me intentionally. When I was able to talk about this later, I had asked them questions about it, and they said, when you adopt a child, you have to go through, the courts, and you have a therapist and all these people that talk to you, and counselors. And, it's a sensitive subject, and it's complex, obviously. So they advised my parents, don't really discuss any of this with your child unless your child brings it up and asks you questions. Well, I really don't want to talk about it when I was a kid. When I'm a teenager, it's embarrassing. I don't want to even bring it up. So it was just never talked about. So I was probably waiting on my parents to talk to me about it, and they were probably waiting on me to talk to them about it. It never got discussed. But again, at 19, I didn't have that maturity to understand that. It was just, you did me wrong. And that was my only mindset at that time. And yeah, just led about 5 years of just pure chaos and destructiveness.
And, we've talked about how you've come out the other side of it, but, a lot of addicts that I talk to, we often talk about the rock bottom, and it being a big part in coming out the other side. What would you say was the rock bottom for you?
Rock bottom. I had many rock bottoms. Some of my rock bottoms would probably be, one person's one rock bottom forever. But yeah, I had many. I can remember plenty of times where I took, I was actually talking to my wife about this tonight. There's some pills. They're called Seeding pills. They're for high blood pressure. You can get them at Walmart. Mm-hmm. And, I had somebody I worked with at this time tell me about these pills, and there's a girl, and she's like, well, I took 3 or 4 of these, and I was hallucinating and kind of tripping out. So again, I didn't really want to live at that time. So I was like, I'm gonna go get some of these. And again, I'm not 20 miles an hour. I go 100.
Yeah.
So I remember like not wanting to live. And I remember taking the whole pack. I think the pack had like 18 pills in it. And I never had a stroke. I may have had a stroke when this happened, but I remember I couldn't talk. I couldn't physically form words. And I remember my brain, I felt like I was having almost like bleeding of the brain, like an aneurysm. And I just wanted to die. And I took them 3 more nights in a row. I don't know how I didn't die from those. And it even, they say if you take over like 5 of these things and you go, matter of fact, I remember, I called this like, it was a suicide hotline. It was like an overdose hotline or something. And this was after I'd done them, so I wanted to talk to somebody. And they said, if you had taken over like 6 of those things, you should have went to the emergency room. And I took 18, almost 80 of those things in 4 days.
Oh, my Lord.
So, like 75 of them. So that was a rock bottom moment. I had nights where, like I say, I was doing exorbitant amounts of cocaine, and heart was racing out of my chest. And, that's when most people would put it down. Well, I would do more, almost hoping my heart would explode. Just a lot of nights like that. I don't really remember if there's like one singular moment that stood out. It was just a lot. It was a lot of rock bottoms. So, yeah.
So do you have any ongoing health problems since all of that destruction?
Not that I know of. I'm a big believer in the body can heal itself pretty well, pretty fast. So, I've been, I try to eat right. I exercise. Like I say, I've really cut back on everything. And like I say, it's been a full year, so I've really done anything at all. So no that I know of, and I got my blood sugars are perfect. I don't get tested a lot, but I know I have blood pressure is perfect. My blood sugar levels are perfect. My parents are diabetic, so like I'll go over there from time to go, test my blood sugars. But those are at perfect levels. And yeah, I mean, when I went to the doctor, nothing I know of, So I'm probably the most lucky person I've ever met.
You are so blessed. You are so blessed, really. Like after all you've been through.
Yeah. I actually got a tattoo on my arm that says blessed.
Oh, look at that. I knew that.
Yeah.
Dallas, wow. I mean, like if someone is listening to this now and they're struggling with addiction or even coming to terms with their own identity, whatever that is, what kind of advice would you have for them based on what you've been through?
Just don't ever give up. Never, ever give up or quit. For me, I also thank God my parents raised me in a church. So I'm not telling anybody to believe in Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha or whatever, but you have to have a higher power. I mean, you just can't get through this life without one. And I don't know how people do it, because when you are at rock bottom, who do you turn to? And I'd like to ask somebody that, like, if they were at rock bottom, who do they turn to? Because I know when I was at rock bottom, I just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And it was just, God help me. Like, I do not want to live like this anymore. And just, like I say, don't give up, have faith, things will change. It may be a year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. But if you never give up and quit, you'll get there someday. You'll get to that other side that you're looking for.
And I know we're talking about some kind of full-on stuff here, including, how you really wanted to take your life. Again, for anyone who's listening and just doesn't want to be here anymore, I mean, you've now been presented with things in your life that make your life worth living, like your daughter, and actually finding things like love. What would you say to someone if they're in that space right now?
It almost makes me tear up thinking about that. I'd say know somebody is out there that does love you. And I know when you're in that space, you think nobody does. And I would say, even if this may sound crazy, but even if like nobody does, love yourself. Love yourself. Because sometimes that's all you have. And I know there are people out there that is all they have. They don't have any family. They don't have any friends. They're lonely. Loneliness can kill people. Just know you have worth in this world. Know you have value. And most people, I would say, have somebody that does love them. But even if you don't, just love yourself, because you're worth it. And things can change.
Absolutely.
I promise they can change.
And you are evidence of that. And so now, today, looking back on your past, you've taken that pain and you're turning it into purpose. How are you using that purpose to help others?
Well, I'm just new. Started some like online coaching, and I'm trying to help people just in that way. But like my purpose now, and I hired a coach recently too. But my purpose and the way he kind of spoke this to me was like, I have to become the best version of me and then give that person away to the world. So essentially you're serving others, and I can't serve others if I'm not my best version. If I'm sitting around smoking pot all day or even drinking or doing anything else, I'm not living up to my best abilities. So I just want to become the person I would always admire, the person that I would want to be, the person I would listen to, and then give that person away to other people. So my goals in the future are, motivational speak, help kids out, adults, whoever. But again, I look at people who are in that space and you find out they still get drunk often, or they're still doing, whatever, gambling, addicted to porn, whatever it is, like any type of addiction. And I can't really take them serious. So I don't want to be that person. I want to be somebody who, again, I would have looked up to as a kid, and just be the best version of myself is what I'm going for now.
I love that.
And that includes a lot of areas. What's that?
I love that, becoming your best self and then sharing that with the world.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's another theme that a lot of addicts that I've spoken to, you know, when I ask what their purpose is now, it is to be of service. And, you know, by turning that pain around and actually helping others get out of the dark as well, like that is one of the most valuable things you can do.
I don't want to see anybody go through that.
No.
And they don't have to. And, you know, if I would have had somebody like me talking to me when I was younger, I would have probably collapsed that time instead of, 15 years of hell and pain. Maybe I only got it for 3 years, but I didn't have anybody to look up to like that. You know, it was some of these false idols, these role models, you know, whether it be musicians or movie stars or whoever, not good. So, I just want to be that guy that says, hey, you don't have to do this. Like, take it from me. I've been through it. You know, you don't have to live this way, and I'll show you how. Because it sucks. And like I say, I've been overweight. I've had issues with my weight. I've had issues with nicotine. I've had issues with pornography, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana. I mean, pills, Xanax. I was hooked on Xanax and Adderall for a couple of years too. I mean, I run the gamut, you know, with things. So I love the way I live now.
You don't do things by halves, do you?
What's that?
You don't do things by halves, do you?
No, no. All or nothing.
So, I mean, if someone was to ask you now, Dallas, who is the person that you look up to as, you know, an idol or someone who inspires you?
Well, I mean, I say God first and foremost, but I have so my coach I hired, his name's Wes Watson, and he's not like a household name right now, but I think he will be in the future. But his story was he was in prison for 10 years and he was on every, you know, smoking speed, meth, whatever. And he totally changed his life around. I mean, if you get on YouTube and watch this guy, he might be a little much for somebody. I mean, he kind of cusses, but he's what to me men need to hear. And that's who I hired as my coach. And he speaks about sobriety, like dropping all your vices. You cannot have any vices in this world. And he's somebody who I look up to because even, you know, you get people like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was talking about him the other day. Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, bodybuilder, a lot of guys look up to him. And he was on Instagram talking about how he pours peach schnapps in his pre-workout drink.
Ooh.
Hey, what's up, Outkick fans? I'm Kurt Schilling. You know me as a 3-time World Series champion. I'm joining Outkick to bring you a brand new baseball show where we talk about everything, but only baseball. And you should subscribe to the podcast on Outkick's YouTube and search for the podcast exclusively on Spotify.
And some people may see that on the surface and say, oh, big deal. But it's like, big deal. Some kid will see that. And you created an alcoholic, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You may not know that, and maybe it's not your responsibility, but I guarantee you some kid watched that and now you turned him into a drunk. I guarantee it. You know, other people like The Rock, the celebrity, he has that tequila line. He's always talking about his tequila.
Yeah.
Do your thing, Rock, but I guarantee you some kid that looks up to you is going to be, you just destroyed his life. You destroyed some guy's marriage. You destroyed some kid, probably dad beating up. I mean, again, you can't say, well, it's not my fault, but you know, why even get into that? So that's why I like my guy, Wes. He's just all about sobriety, dropping vices, being a better man. And, you know, instead of picking up a pipe or something to smoke, he talks about exercise. You know, just you get those urges, just go exercise, and that'll cure everything. So somebody I look up to now for sure. There aren't many guys like him. I mean, especially in this world, it's filled with people, you know, promoting their vices and their, you know, ways. He's one of the few that aren't. So he's changed a lot of lives. You got to check him out. Yeah, his name's Wes Watson.
Well, he's got a name that sounds like it should be a household name. So
he probably will be too. Yeah.
I reckon he's not far away. And I love the approach that you've taken there. And yeah, I completely agree with you that there's a lot of celebrities and media that have a lot to answer for. I mean, you just I've spoken about a lot of different addictions on this show, and the media has a lot to answer for. You know, you look at movies, TV, celebrity endorsements, all that kind of stuff. We really need to think twice, particularly if kids are going to be in the room, you know, like alcohol is just so widely accepted. I mean, look at how far we've come with smoking and how that attitude has changed. Why can't we do the same with alcohol?
Yeah, and I had somebody on Instagram the other day talking the other day about that, about how alcohol, they think that it's going to go the way of cigarettes. And, I'm an eternal optimist. I am. But I look at alcohol and I'm just like,
It's got a
all the
long
people
way
that
to go.
drink
Yeah.
is great. I mean, you just go to a restaurant and you see everybody there's got a drink in their hands. You go to any sporting event, they've all got a drink in their hands. So, yeah, I hope it does go the way of cigarettes someday. I just think there's too much money in it. And I don't know. I hope it does. But just next time you go out, just watch.
I know. I know. Yeah. And I know I've previously had issues with alcohol as well. And, I've taken periods where I've just stopped completely, and you notice how much it is around you. Everywhere you go, every event you go to, everywhere. You can't escape it. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you real quick, Benny, here's something I've kind of thought about alcohol since I've gotten away from it. Nobody needs it. And I'll tell you why, is because obviously if somebody's drinking a lot and it's destroying their life, they don't need it. And then when I got to the period where I would just socially drink, I'm like, I'm going out for the night and I'm just having like 2 or 3. I don't even need those anymore. So I don't see any place for alcohol. Like I say, if you're drunk, you don't need it. And if you can get by and just have a couple, just don't have a couple and you'll be just fine, So yeah, I just don't see any place for it. I think it's bad. Yeah.
It's just even socially, it's just empty calories anyway. So, like, why are we doing that? There's so many other things we could be doing with our lives. These lives are so precious, and look at the way we waste them. Now, Dallas, if people want to get in touch with you and find out more, where can they go?
So I have an Instagram handle. I went on social media forever, but then my coach, Wes, he's like, you got to start social media. You got to go on Instagram if you want to help coach people. I said, okay. So anyway, I can actually talk about this later if you have a minute, but walking, kind of saved my life as well. But my Instagram handle is at @the_walk_king. Kind of self-indulgent. I call myself.
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
I love to walk. Yeah, I walk a lot, and that's something else. That's kind of. If I could, do you have a minute where I can touch on that? Okay, because I would tell people, Benny, another thing. When I was going through that period from about 30 to about 38 for my after my daughter was born, when I was age 30, like I say, I was still smoking pot every single day. Hard drugs really weren't there, quit drinking, but I was still smoking weed and cigarettes, and I did not want to live that life either. So I had another moment. I was probably about 34 at this time, about 6 years ago. I was sitting in my car and I was praying, and I said, God, I need help. Please help me. I do not want to live this life anymore. Just please help me. And the overwhelming voice, and you call it my conscience or the universe or whoever, just said, go walk. Start walking and we'll figure this out together. I said, okay. I've always been one to listen, whatever that intuition where I just do whatever they say. Sometimes it's led me astray. Other times it's, saved my life. So I did that. And ever since then, I get minimum about 5 miles in a day. But something else I would tell people is if you cigarettes were the first thing to go when I started walking these long, I call it trek about 10 miles plus. But I went out and started walking, and I would leave my house with no money, no nothing, no cigarettes, and I would leave them at home. And I would go out like on a Saturday, and I would walk for 4 or 5 hours straight. So about every 3 hours, you can walk about 10 miles. So I was walking about 15 miles a day. And Steve Jobs, Shakespeare, Isaac, all these people who are some of our geniuses, they swear by walking. You can look, they all talk about long walks, because what it does is it's kind of like that tangled up hose I talk about, where you go out to your garage and there's a hose and you look at it and there's just 55 knots in it and you don't know where to begin. That's how my life was. I'm like, I have so many things, where do I even start? And for a lot of people, it can be that way. So with the walks, it's kind of like you're just taking knot out by knot out. And then by the end, it's just straight. So I would do that. And that's what helped me quit cigarettes. That's what helped me, pretty much quit drinking too completely. And you lose weight too. It's great for your fitness, obviously, but as far as your mental health is concerned, I have a couple friends who they pretty much stopped drinking from, they just started walking every day because you abstain from whatever that vice is. So not only do you get the physical benefits and the mental benefits, for 8 hours, I couldn't have a cigarette. So the only discipline I would really have to have is, don't pick a dirty cigarette butt off the ground, which I'm not going to do that, or, bum one off somebody. So yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, if you're having any issues mentally or trying to give up an addiction, you start out by a walk, and it can change things very fast.
And I was talking to a fitness coach from Gainesville a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the motivation for exercise. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I got to do it to lose weight," and actually, for a lot of people, it's not the thing that helps them lose weight. But really, exercise, one of the best motivations for it is actually for your mental health. Because it is so great for our mental health and making sure that we can, it changes our endorphins and our hormones and, getting our dopamine going. So our whole brain chemistry is going to change. So our mental health is going to shift. Then you get the added benefit of fitness. So I think it's just looking at your motivations and why you do things as well.
What's that?
Your motivations and why you do things is really important as well, because it creates the change too, like it would with addiction.
Right. And that's exactly right. You nailed it on the head there about exercise. And I try to tell people is don't think about it from a physical or aesthetic standpoint. Think about it for your mental health, because the physical part will take care of itself on its own. But if you exercise, and that's what thing, again, my mentor, Wes, that's something he kind of drilled into my head was, because when he was in prison, he had to escape his negative self-talk. And he's like, the only way I could do that was through exercise. Yeah. So the physical part will come with it, but people have to start focusing on what it does for their mental health. And with walking, that's what to me is so great. It's low impact. You can do it anytime, anywhere. And I'll go to the gym when I can, but I know there's a lot of people who'll never go to the gym. They're either too heavy or it's not for some people. But I kind of joke around and tell people, if you can walk to the refrigerator, you can go outside and walk.
That's it.
So just start walking.
Yeah, one step at a time, even if it's just to the mailbox and back, that's a start,
And I'm glad you said that too, Bendy, because the metaphors and the life lessons you get on walks, or I get on walks, like what you just said right there, one step at a time, you can use that in your life in itself, one step at a time. I'm not trying to sprint to the end of this journey. It's a long road. And I know if I just take one step at a time and I say slow motion is better than no motion, you'll get there. And I teach my daughter this is we'll go out on a walk and she'll, huff and puff. And then, you put your head down and you just go, you look back and you're like, oh my God, look how far I've come, but when you look out ahead, you think it's this big, long journey. And that's how quitting addictions can be. It's it's just too much for me. So just, put your head down one step at a time. And then pretty soon, you're going to look back and, oh my God, I came this far. So yeah, a lot of life lessons I learned through walking for sure.
A lot of it's best left in the rear view mirror, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Now I got the last big question for you, Dallas. What's the change you'd like to see in the world and how can we bring it to life?
Everybody to just love each other and just not get so caught up in this, I think TV is like the devil. I think it's divisive. Just, stuff we see on the news, just give people the benefit of the doubt. That's something that's always served me too really well is look for the good in people and know that we're all born inherently good. And through life circumstances or things that have happened to people, it can change people, but just know that there's a good soul underneath that exterior. And again, we were all born good at one point, and just to forgive people and, just give people the benefit of the doubt. If somebody upsets you, these are life lessons, my dad taught me when I was a kid, just, things I'm kind of saying now is just give people the benefit of the doubt, don't rush to conclusions, don't jump conclusions, and just love and forgive. So.
Yeah. And I love that, like, as you say, we're all born perfect and we're all born good inherently.
Yeah.
But, over time things change and everybody's got a story. Everybody's going through something. And,
Right.
it's more in our struggles that we're more alike than apart. And
Exactly.
I think if we can just see that in each other and understand each other on that level, the world would be a different place.
Yeah. Right. And, real quick, Ben, even people that we see that have it all together, like I live here in Florida and I see people that got their mansions and nice cars and stuff. And, even they, I don't want to compare whose problems get worse, but I mean, even they have problems,
Oh, yeah.
And again, I know money can help things out in situations. I've had times where I had a lot of money. I was in the banking industry for a while and kind of crapped that away with drugs and alcohol. But there were times I made a lot of money and I was hurting deeply at those times.
Yeah.
So we just got to look at everybody with a fresh set of loving eyes and just try to look at them as like I say, they were born a good soul at one point.
Yeah, absolutely. Dallas, I reckon you and I could sit down and talk all day. There's so much that we've got in common. It's not funny, but I have loved every minute with you. Thank you for being a part of the Ethical Evolution.
Well, thank you, Benny. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com.
Hey gang, I'm Nikki LaCroce, host of Who the Fuck, a show that explores the power of human connection and the profound resilience of the human spirit through compassionate conversations that help you better understand yourself so you can live with the sense of peace, purpose, and joy that you deserve. Each episode offers a safe space for guests to share intimate details of their personal journey and lessons learned along the way as we all seek to answer life's most important question: who the fuck am I?
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
We're the founders of Electrocast Media, bringing you great podcasts like Nightmare Road Stories, Tech Talk Revolution, and Bodacious Minds.
Electrocast networks include Ruby for female empowerment, the Best Business Network, and GPN for geopolitics. We built this company to create community and amplify diverse voices, and we really appreciate your support.
So, keep listening to Electrocast podcasts and hear the culture.
Electrocast.